As the IFES executive meetings evolved, primarily taking place in Europe under the incisive chairmanship of Martyn Lloyd-Jones and Deputy René Pache, a transformative shift began to unfold, initially dominated by European and American members. By 1962, the growing importance of including representatives from newly established national movements became increasingly apparent. This dynamic period also saw significant developments within the IFES General Committee, known for its vigorous debates and diverse approaches. In 1963, the election of René Pache and John Bolton as the first official vice presidents marked a pivotal moment in the organization's leadership structure. Despite the exclusivity of these meetings, which were closed to visitors, they coincided with student conferences, blending formal governance with broader educational activities. How would these changes influence the future direction and decision-making of the IFES?
The IFES General Committee, during this period, was a formal body characterized by vigorous debates where diverse approaches to issues were frequently evident. John Bolton notably served as the treasurer from the inception of the movement until 1963. In the same year, René Pache and John Bolton were elected as the first official vice presidents of IFES, marking a significant development in the organization's leadership structure. The committee maintained a carefully controlled list of delegates and observers and was not open to other visitors. Despite its exclusivity, the General Committee meetings coincided with a student conference, allowing for some integration of broader educational and developmental activities within the formal proceedings. In 1948, a regional conference took place at Vennes-sur-Lausanne, setting the stage for further organizational developments. The Second General Committee of IFES convened in September 1950 at Ridley Hall and Tyndale House, Cambridge. During this meeting, Frank Dane, then a headmaster in Sierra Leone, and Martyn Lloyd-Jones delivered significant addresses. This period was marked by the rapid escalation of the Cold War in Europe, prompting the IFES Executive Committee to issue a stern advisory. They urged all members to prepare for survival in the event of a sudden global conflict and strongly recommended avoiding involvement in political activities, reflecting the tense international climate and the need for the organization to maintain its focus on its core religious and educational missions. Amid the escalating tensions of the Cold War, the fear of a nuclear conflict became so pronounced that IFES took a precautionary step to safeguard its organizational records. It was decided that copies of the minutes would be deposited in Colorado. This measure was intended to protect these important documents from potential loss in the event of a nuclear war, ensuring the continuity and preservation of the organization's history and operations under such dire circumstances. In 1952, the IFES Executive Committee convened in Darmstadt, Germany, marking a significant moment in the organization's efforts to rebuild and strengthen its network in post-war Europe. The following year, in 1953, the General Committee returned to Switzerland, meeting at Casa Tabor in Monte Locarno. By 1956, the venue shifted to North America, with Glen Orchard, Ontario, Canada, serving as the host. This meeting featured prominent speakers including Billy Graham, A.W. Tozer, and Martyn Lloyd-Jones. with the latter delivering talks that would later form the basis of his book, Authority. It was during this meeting that the needs of Latin America were formally acknowledged by the fellowship. In 1959, the meetings took place in Paris, and the issue of affiliation took center stage due to a substantial increase in the number of delegates and observers from around the world. This expansion highlighted the transformation of the General Committee into a truly international body. The experience proved overwhelming and led to some intense debates. In response to these challenges and the growing diversity of perspectives within the committee, the Executive Committee decided to establish standing orders to better structure future meetings and facilitate smoother proceedings. In what was to be his final act before stepping down as chairman to pave the way for a younger generation of leaders, Martyn Lloyd-Jones undertook a critical and delicate task, persuading the more militant members of the committee that there were confidential reasons behind the Executive Committee's decisions. His unique position and respected authority enabled him to address these sensitive issues effectively. Lloyd-Jones was honored at his farewell for his many years of dedicated service, receiving accolades for his prophetic and biblically grounded ministry. He continued to serve as honorary president until 1967, when he was succeeded by Professor Carl Fredrik Wisløff of Norway. Following his tenure, Professor Carl Fredrik Wisløff's role as chairman was assumed by Professor Bodo Volkmann of Germany. Volkmann held the position for the next 4 years, continuing the leadership transition within the organization and contributing to its ongoing development and international outreach. The 1963 General Committee meeting in Nyack, New York, marked a significant event for IFES, attended by 86 delegates representing 26 national movements. The conference featured a diverse array of speakers from England, Latin America, India, and the Philippines. Prominent themes included Christian unity, discussed by Dr. Martyn Lloyd-Jones, and the character of Roman Catholicism. The business meetings were particularly lively, with vigorous debates on issues of affiliation. Simultaneously, the Executive Committee worked to resolve membership issues concerning African delegates. A pivotal moment of the conference occurred when 3 African delegates were officially recognized and took their seats, symbolizing a significant step toward inclusivity and representation within IFES. The 1967 General Committee, held in Wuppertal, Barmen, Germany, was another large gathering. It featured speakers such as Paul Little and Henry and Jacques Blochet. However, this meeting was marked by intense discussions and challenges to the Executive Committee's suggestions, particularly from Australian and New Zealand delegates. Their concerns notably included the role of Samuel Escobar, an IFES staff member serving on the executive. The extensive participation of these delegates in discussions led to criticisms from John Alexander, who pointed out that so much talking is being done by so few delegates who speak on so many topics. Despite the objections, Samuel Escobar was reappointed to the executive, reflecting a decision to maintain continuity and experienced leadership within the organization's governance. In a reflective assessment, the IFES Executive Committee concurred with a grievance raised during the East Asian Staff Conference. The complaint highlighted that so much time is spent on discussing organizational and constitutional details that the sense of being a true fellowship in the Spirit is obscured. The same General Committee also recognized the importance of pioneering in new territories and the necessity for stronger theological guidance on pressing issues. This dual focus aimed to expand the organization's reach and deepen its impact by entering new areas where IFES had little or no presence, thereby broadening its global footprint. Concurrently, The committee emphasized the need for robust theological frameworks to address contemporary challenges, ensuring that responses were not only timely, but also deeply rooted in Christian doctrinal perspectives. The movement took a strategic step to bolster its advisory capacity by establishing a board of reference. This board included distinguished members from across the globe, reflecting the organization's commitment to diverse and comprehensive theological and academic input. Among the early members were notable figures such as Professor Carl Wislöff from Scandinavia, Professor Norman Anderson from England, Professor Van Riesen from the Netherlands, Dr. Frank Gaebelein from the USA, Professor E.M. Blakelock from New Zealand, and Dr. Henry Park from Korea. During its formative years, IFES gradually expanded its board of reference to include key ecclesiastical leaders and evangelical academics, further broadening its advisory capabilities. Notably, Archbishop Howard Mole of the Sydney Anglican Diocese and his successor, Marcus Lone, were added, along with other distinguished figures. The first 25 years of IFES were characterized by both creation and consolidation. The ministry experienced rapid growth during this period. However, the organization took a more measured pace in acknowledging the importance of regions beyond Europe and North America. Initially, IFES functioned largely as an ad hoc movement, more a framework for facilitating cooperation among member movements than a fully structured organization. In the decades following the war, North American ministries within IFES demonstrated significant strength, though they underwent various substantial changes. One notable adjustment occurred in 1952, aimed at alleviating the pressures on the Canadian branch. At that time, Stacey Woods was serving as the General Director for both the United States and Canada, a role that stretched resources and leadership attention. To address this, Wilbur Sutherland was appointed as General Secretary for Canada. Sutherland served in this capacity until 1970, providing stable and effective leadership. His tenure was marked by a strong emphasis on relevant communication, a focus that, while innovative, was met with resistance from some supporters. Samuel Escobar, hailing from Latin America, served as the General Director of IFES from 1972 to 1975, followed by Don McLeod and then Jim Bernier, who remains in office. During this period, the ministry to students was notably enhanced with the establishment of campus in the Woods in Ontario, which provided a pivotal space for nurturing faith and developing leadership among students. Another one of the most significant initiatives was the development of pioneer camps across Canada. These camps served dual purposes. They were both recreational and evangelistic, and they played a crucial role in training university students in leadership skills, Bible study, and evangelism. This approach effectively combined practical life skills with spiritual growth, reinforcing the organization's commitment to holistic development. In Quebec, the historical dominance of Roman Catholicism presented unique challenges for establishing evangelical student work. The province's shift toward secularization since the 1960s created a complex backdrop, as the community was not initially more receptive to the evangelical gospel despite the broader societal changes. Joseph Tremblay, a former Catholic priest, was the first staff worker to make inroads into this challenging environment. In 1972, Ramez Attallah took over, bringing fresh leadership that would later extend to significant roles in the Middle East. Claude Descrevel succeeded Attallah in 1982, and by 1991 the GBU, Groupe Biblique Universitaire, was recommended for affiliation at the General Committee. Under the leadership of Hélène Provost from 1993, the GBU remained a relatively small initiative, engaging about 200 students out of 250,000 in the province. Furthermore, the question of how to involve Asian students in IFES became increasingly pressing in Canada, especially following the formation of Ambassadors for Christ in the USA and then in Canada in 1966. In 1989, Benny Chin, former General Secretary of Hong Kong FES, took a leading role in developing this organization and expanding its reach within Canada, addressing the need to cater to the specific cultural and spiritual needs of Asian students and integrating them more fully into the IFES framework. In 1991, with backing from the Canadian IVCF, efforts were made to join IFES. However, IFES's General Committee could not approve the inclusion of a non-geographical group. Post-war, the United States IVCF saw a significant increase in staff. Joe Bailey and his wife Mary Lou joined in 1944, followed by Rosalind Rinker, a future prominent author, and Jean Thomas, who would become a key figure. This expansion necessitated the appointment of regional directors in 1948, a year that also marked the professionalization of their financial support through the controversial figure, Eugene C. Peterson. The early 1950s marked a period of considerable growth for the movement. IVCF not only supported IFES initiatives worldwide, but also benefited from the contributions of British evangelists like Leith Samuel. In 1951, a group of 4 British students visited Ivy League colleges, significantly bolstering IVCF's work. Notably, the movement acquired permanent campsites, such as Campus by the Sea in California, Bear Trap Ranch in Colorado, and Cedar Campus in Michigan. However, by the late 1950s and early 1960s, the movement faced challenges from competing Christian organizations and a shifting secular landscape, necessitating substantial changes. Some regions, like the Rockies under Eugene Thomas, became markedly independent. Central leadership, however, appeared stagnant as potential leaders like Warner Hutchinson and Charles Troutman pursued other opportunities. Tensions between the senior staff and the board escalated, highlighting the need for a robust executive director, a role Stacy Woods struggled to fulfill. In 1960, Stacy Woods stepped down as General Secretary, paving the way for Charles Troutman to return from Australia and lead the movement from 1961 to 1964. Troutman's tenure was marred by structural issues that resulted in declining staff morale and turnover, necessitating significant organizational changes. The subsequent appointment of John W. Alexander as president in 1964 marked a turning point for IVCF. Alexander, transitioning from an academic role with a strong focus on management, infused new vigor into the leadership. Under his guidance, the ministry not only stabilized but also experienced growth until his retirement in 1981. James McCleish took over from Alexander, followed by Gordon MacDonald and Tom Dunkerton in rapid succession. In 1988, Steve Hayner assumed leadership, bringing much-needed stability and rejuvenation following a tumultuous period among the staff. The American movement has seen a notable recovery in recent years, with 26,153 students participating in local chapters by 1993. The introduction of multi-ethnic ministries has been particularly impactful. This commitment to diversity is highlighted by the establishment of Black campus ministries and Asian American ministries within IVCF. Furthermore, since 1988, there has been a significant expansion in the international activities of IVCF. This includes contributing to IFES through staff loans to burgeoning movements, fostering twinning relationships, and creating global projects teams to work in various parts of the world, all of which underscore its deepening global engagement.